Good afternoon, everyone. It is David Schlotthauer here with another detailed weather forecast for the Midwest, for the Great Lakes, and for the Deep South for March 29th, 2023. In this video, we are keeping an eye on a potential severe weather episode or outbreak across much of the Midwest, including the risk for strong tornadoes, damaging winds of 75 plus miles an hour, and some large hailstones. So here's a detailed look at the latest water vapor satellite imagery provided by tropicaltidbits.com at Levi Cowan, and this gives us a pretty good representation of what the weather pattern is currently doing across the United States. So put this into simple words, we have a trough of low pressure over California and over Nevada. This is going to be the culprit behind Friday's severe weather episode for the upper Midwest and the Midwest. Okay, and this is going to be moving eastward with time, but out ahead of it, we are going to see a lot of ascent, we're going to see a lot of convection, and some drier air that is going to help steepen mid-level lapse rates and give us some of the large hail that is anticipated. But right now, this is where our low-pressure system is over California, bringing us showers, thunderstorms, some small hail, and strong, gusty, erratic winds. So now, taking a look at our latest models as far as who is going to get the severest weather and how it's going to play out on the NAM 3 kilometer. So this is a look at that meso model for Friday early afternoon. This is right around, say, 1 and 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time, and we can see we do have a surface low that is going to be setting up over central Iowa as well as southern portion there of Minnesota. We can see the trough right here, the lowest pressure out ahead of it. We're going to drag in a lot of moisture, as we can see here, some of the showers and thunderstorms that are anticipated to billow up as we get that land heating anticipating. So here's a look at the latest 18Z NAM 3 kilometer model. This is a meso model that we like to use for severe weather events because it gives us an idea on where and when these severe thunderstorms will be popping up across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. We have two sectors. We'll be looking at the Deep South here in just a little bit. But first, the Midwest and the upper Midwest, because that's going to be the area that we're really concerned about for strong winds, tornadoes, and large hail. So this is 18Z Friday, which is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon for Central Daylight Time. All right, and we can see we have some showers, some thunderstorms that are going to be popping up as the surface low gets going, some low-level moisture, but it's not going to be until we get into like 20Z on Friday, which will be about 3 o'clock in the afternoon for Central Daylight Time. We do have some showers and thunderstorms that will be popping up here over eastern Kansas, so like Kansas City. Definitely be on the lookout for strong thunderstorms, and also for central and southern Iowa, where we do have some semi-discrete supercells that could pop up, and these will likely be the ones to really watch for some strong tornado genesis to occur. Also downstream into northern Illinois, there is the threat and concerning aspect to some semi-discrete storms that will be moving northward throughout the warm advection regime, the warm sector that is in place right over here. Okay, and any of those storms could get organized and be capable of producing tornadoes. But it's not really until we get into 22Z, 23Z. This is right around, say, 6 and 7 o'clock at night on your Friday. So when you're headed home from work, there is going to be a concerning threat here for strong showers and thunderstorms that are anticipated. You look at that line, that's a really intense line of storms that is going to really be blowing up in intensity, because that's where the cold front is going to be in place. Actually, a little bit of a dry line perhaps, and then look at that. You can see the warm front draping over Wisconsin, over central Michigan there. Really well dynamic system, and when you get the good dynamics, we're going to be seeing quite a bit of severe thunderstorms right along this line, and this line of storms will be capable of producing 65 to 75 plus mile-an-hour wind gusts that will bring down trees, power lines. We're looking at a lot of wind damage, okay? Big-time severe weather event unfolding here for Friday from central eastern Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, really in the crosshairs of some serious, dangerous weather here. And this will continue. Really intense line of storms over central and southern Illinois, moving into Indiana. And this is going to have some serious winds with it. 60, 75 plus mile-an-hour wind gusts along this line. Enough to really cause some serious damage. But to the north, it's snowing over central Wisconsin and southern portion there of Minnesota. A quick look at the deep south here over Arkansas and northeastern Texas. We do have some showers and thunderstorms that are anticipated to pop up out in the afternoon hours of Friday. So keep that in mind. Showers, thunderstorms. We might see a few semi-discrete storms down here. Maybe a tornado threat that could be a little substantial, especially over central and northern Arkansas. We might see one strong tornado or two that is anticipated. But the further north you go, that's when more of the dynamics come into play. That's when we will have more of the worser severe weather conditions. And then, of course, this line really moves into eastern or western Tennessee, northwestern Mississippi with some large hail, strong winds, and maybe a few embedded supercells within that line that could actually be capable of producing tornadoes that could be somewhat strong. But especially the further north you get, where that wind shear is stronger, that's where we have the better chances of tornadoes along this cold front. So now let's talk about the dynamics. How is this going to play out as far as wind shear, instability, moisture? What is going to make this such a big deal over the Midwest and the Great Lakes region? Well, first of all, we're taking a look at our surface winds in knots. Okay, these are surface winds right above the surface, anywhere between 20 to 30 feet. So we can see that winds are going to be on the increase here, anywhere between 20 to 30 miles an hour over central southern Illinois, central Indiana, central Ohio, into Missouri, into Kansas, Oklahoma. But wait until we get into the afternoon here. Winds are going to be on the increase out ahead of this line, and we can see some of these winds here could be on the order of 50 knots. I know it says 40 knots, but sometimes the NAM does not estimate wind gusts very well, or sustained winds. But these are going to be sustained perhaps anywhere between 35 to 50 miles an hour right along the line here. And they might intensify once they get into Illinois, possibly 45 plus knots. That is about 55 near 60 miles an hour. That will bring down trees and power lines. And look at the winds out ahead of this, probably between 30 to 40 miles an hour. Also, some gradient type wind damage that is anticipated as the line moves through. And then look at how this bows out a little bit over western Indiana by Friday night into Saturday. Yeah, we could have sustained winds within this line at 50 knots. That is 60 miles an hour. And winds could gust easily over 75 miles an hour over eastern Illinois into western Indiana, including for Kentucky there. Watch out. Some strong damaging winds are anticipated with this line of storms as they propagate eastward along that boundary of cooler air. All right, and that goes into Ohio by the time we go into early Saturday morning. But yeah, it's going to be a really dangerous event as far as strong winds go. A big wind deal with this one. Not a tornado deal, but the biggest will be the winds and maybe some quarter-size hail. Yes, we might see a strong tornado or two, but I am not putting my prediction really high on that. It's probably going to be at most a 10 sig for tornadoes, probably even a bit lower than that. It's very hard to say, but for sure, winds are going to be the big episodic part of this severe weather event on Friday for the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. So now let's take a look at those low-level winds. Those low-level winds are going to be pretty substantial. All right. First of all, strong winds are going to be in place in the lower levels of the atmosphere, but especially when we get into Friday afternoon, look at these low-level winds. Going to be increasing. That low-level jet going to be strengthening. It's going to help enlarge our hodographs out ahead of this line. So we do get the potential for a few, or for several tornadoes at least, embedded within this squall line or QLCS. And then look at this. By Friday night into Saturday Friday evening, Friday night, that kind of in that time frame, look at the low-level jet anywhere between 70 to 85 knots. That is very strong, okay? And that is going to really lead to some serious wind damage potential. I mean, look at this, 87 knots over central Indiana, like Kokomo, Indiana, really big time. Possibly almost 90 knot winds right out ahead of this line. And so when you get downdrafts, that's the heavy rainfall that happens with these line of storms, right? That's going to actually transport that strong wind down to the surface. And that's why I think we're going to have 75 plus mile-an-hour damaging winds. That's significant. That will warrant probably a 30 sig, even a 45 sig for wind, which would be a moderate risk on the Storm Prediction Center. But in my own opinion, I am not quite comfortable yet in this YouTube video to go for a moderate. You might all be saying, it's going to be a moderate, David. It's going to be a moderate. Even other YouTube channels are already mentioning a dangerous, life-threatening, severe weather outbreak. They're going a little overboard on this Friday's event. In my personal opinion, it's going to be close to being a severe weather outbreak, but I don't think so. It's going to definitely be a pretty serious severe weather event. When we get closer and when we fine-tune the details, I will think about using the words severe weather outbreak. All right, but right now I'm not quite safely going for that at the moment. Okay, but certainly some very strong low-level winds here. Man, over Ohio, over Kentucky, big-time wind damage concerns do exist. So now the wind shear or the upper level wind pattern is also going to be strong. Check this out. I mean, especially over Missouri. Look at the mid-level winds at about 18,000 feet, 100 knots. That is very strong. And as this line pulls through, maybe peaking at 115 knots. And once this gets into, say, Illinois, look at this. 130 knot winds potentially right over that area. So this is a very, very big wind damage threat, again, over Indiana. So the winds, definitely, the kinematics, really extreme out there with the severe event. Now, the bulk shear, something else. We're going to have to really watch that. Right now, effective bulk shear, anywhere between 70 to 80 knots over Illinois early on in the period. But look at this. Once we get into the evening hours, possibly getting 85 to 95 knots effective bulk shear. That is absolutely sickening, as what James Truft would actually say. A lot of curvature to the photographs. In fact, if we click on a photograph here really quickly, you will see that they are definitely curved. Let me actually pull that up. Right there, definitely some curvature. Storm Slinky's not very good at this point, which is good because if we have a C-shaped slinky, that typically means we have a lot in the way of directional shear. We have a lot of helicity going on. We do it with speed shear mainly with this component, and that moves further into Indiana and Ohio, where effective shear will be over 80, maybe 90 knots, or even close to 100 knots. On top of that, we have instability that is going to be in place. Look at the amount of mixed layer cape that is going to be in place, and this is basically thunderstorm juice. Okay, it's like gasoline that fuels these thunderstorms. So the higher the cape numbers, the more potential you have in the atmosphere for severe thunderstorms. And usually when you get over 2,000, that is pretty significant. So we can see over Missouri, over central and southern Iowa, we have cape, a mixed layer cape, anywhere between about 1,000 to maybe even 2,000 joules, and then going further east into, say, westernmost Illinois, maybe up to 1,500, maybe up to 2,000 joules of mixed layer cape. That is definitely enough to propose a big severe weather event for Illinois, for Missouri, and especially for southeastern Iowa. In fact, in my thoughts in this video are that this area in particular, right here that I have circled in, and I'm going off the map here because this is further south. This area boxed in black has the biggest potential in my regards, in my opinion, to having the worst severe weather impacts out of this. That includes maybe a couple of strong tornadoes, definitely widespread significant damaging winds of 75 plus miles an hour, and of course, the threat for some large hail that could exceed 1 or 2 inches in diameter, hailstones, okay? So that's a look at the Cape. What about the moisture? We're going to have a lot of moisture transport out ahead of this. Dew points in the low to mid 60s in St. Louis, Missouri, all the way into southeastern Iowa, as well as western portion of Illinois. Yes, scam call again. I hate those. Into western Kentucky, seeing dew points that are going to be fairly high out ahead of this. A very well-defined warm sector here where we have a cold front and where we have a warm front that is draped over Michigan. And out ahead of this, we got dew points that are going to be rising with distance. Not so much if you're in Indiana. Dew points there are going to be in the low to mid-50s. But like Illinois, you're going to have dew points that are going to probably be in the low 60s. And that's going to yield that, mixed layer cape that is going to be in place. Now, another thing, we talked about, we need to take a look at the SPC, in fact. So therefore, the Storm Prediction Center, Leitman, has issued a enhanced risk for severe weather across much of the Midwest here, including for Arkansas and northern Mississippi. Yes, this is a much more widespread event that covers a large, broader area, including for central and southeastern Iowa. This is driven by a 30 sig for severe weather probabilities, and it doesn't surprise me if they go 45 sig for damaging winds, a 10 sig for tornadoes. I am not very excited about seeing mini tornadoes out of this. This is not the atmosphere for that because we're going to have rapid upscale growth. Now, you might, very slim chance, right at the triple point here in central Iowa, might add in a 15 sig for tornadoes. Very at the upper limit, okay? Please don't quote me on that. Possibly. Okay, it's not a guarantee. Definitely a 10 sig for tornadoes at the very most, because we're going to have embedded circulations within the line, so there will be significant tornadoes, 10 sig along the line here, probably from, say, from northern Arkansas northward here, right all in this area is where I think the best chances. We might get some 10 sig down here. We'll have to wait with what the SPC actually shows. But yeah, in the short term for Friday it's looking pretty bad, but not the worst I have seen, fortunately. So now, going back to the models again, we're keeping an eye now on Tuesday next week. There have been a lot of people talking about this, that Tuesday next week looks haywire. Tuesday looks actually much worse than Friday. That's assuming if we look at the European model, which actually has a berserk looking worst case scenario setup that you do not want to see. That would probably warrant a moderate risk, at least, maybe even a high risk for severe weather. Doesn't surprise me. All right, so let's take a look here at the European really quickly. Not going to dive too deep into this since it's far out in time. One severe weather event at a time. But we have a surface low that is going to rapidly intensify. Lee side cyclogenus off of the Colorado Rockies here, 978 millibars by Tuesday morning. Out ahead of this, yeah, you're going to pull in a lot of moisture from the deep south here. 60s and 70 dew points, very likely all the way up into southern Iowa and Missouri. That will become very problematic. So by Tuesday afternoon, we do have discrete storms that do fire up from Arkansas into Missouri, into Illinois, and southern Wisconsin. Why is this a problem? Well, we're going to increase the shear out ahead of this, okay? Because the trough, the wind energy associated with this will be pretty phenomenal. We also have a squall line, so a similar event that we're seeing on Friday, but only that we might have more discrete mode development, that could really yield a higher tornado threat and some serious wind damage and large hail concerns too. 979 millibars over South Dakota. Very heavy snow out of this storm system, so pretty dynamic. And yes, we might get more severe weather concerns here for the deep south, for the Ozarks, the upper Midwest, and even for portions there of the Northeast for Wednesday and even into Thursday. So that's a quick look. The GFS, not so exciting on, actually maybe a little bit more in the way of coverage as far as discrete mode goes, but lesser in coverage depending on what model run you look at. This is the 12Z run. The 18Z is not out yet. That's going to be out in another hour, so it's going to be too late when this video is out. But either way you put it, there is some uncertainty in regards to that. But if we just base off of the European model, yeah, get ready for a very, very big severe weather event. I'm not calling it an outbreak. It's way too far out. It's day 7, as we see here on the SPC, but it's something to start considering. Okay, so it's not just Friday, but it's also Tuesday next week that we're going to have to be watching closely for. So a 15% threat for severe weather over Arkansas, Missouri, central and southern Illinois, central and southern Indiana, over across the Ozarks and the Deep South. So this one, again, is really concerning me a lot. And yeah, we'll see with what the SPC does in later outlooks. But right now, this is a 15% risk for severe thunderstorms. All right, so that is going to sum it up for today's video, folks. If you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing. It does mean so much to me. I can't do these without all of you. You guys are really awesome. I love you to death. Because if I didn't love you, I would not be making these videos. So please consider subscribing, because I don't think I'm live streaming on Friday. Again, it's still up in the air. If needed be, I will have to use the emergency button on that. But right now, I don't think I'm going to live stream on Friday. But the good news is, probably on Tuesday next week, I am looking into live streaming already. I have a little bit of confidence that's going to be a bigger event than the Friday's event. Not that Friday is not that big, but I think bigger is worse on Tuesday next week. All right, so be sure you do subscribe if you haven't already, folks. Hit the like button and share this video with your family and friends on social media. And never forget to also check out the Discord server and Mesovort WX. There is a link in the description leading to those two websites that you want to actually check out. All right, but thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with an update on Friday's severe weather event at around 3 to 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So stay tuned for that.